Want to know who runs the big show here on planet Earth? Now, we're not talking about the divine, but what about those that consider themselves to be like gods? What about those that call themselves the gods? We're going to get into it. Robert Stanley as well as Jay Campbell are with me today. And remember, this is for entertainment purposes only. Live action role playing, any correlations or similarities are pure coincidence. Enjoy this and be the change you want to see. Hey everybody, Rex Bear Leak Project. How the heck are you? I've got a couple of legends with us today, and I want to make sure everybody stays safe. So I've got the EMF protection as well as the welding glasses and a little bit of tinfoil. Jay Campbell, oh my goodness, it's great to see you. Robert Stanley, amazing to see you. How the heck are you? What's going on?
No.
Man, this time machine's insane. I tell you, I've been working on it for a while, and we've been foiling the foilers. So check this out. Rex Luther.
Nice. Looking good. Rex, we're definitely twins now. You just don't have on the UV blockers.
Or 50 pounds of muscle. So I'm working on it. Working on it. I'm doing a lot of push-ups.
Me too.
So,
all of us. There we go.
What's going on, guys? I mean, there's a lot going on around the world, and that's why I like to start off a little bit of fun, because in a serious world like this, if you're not crazy, you're crazy, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. All right, before we get into this, before we get real deep into this conversation, I do want to thank my friend over at C60 Purple Power, Ken Swartz. This guy is an alchemist. This guy is incredible. He makes some of the best C60 in the universe. If you go to C60purplepower.com, you can pick up your flavor today. You put the lime in the coconut, then you put the C60 in the coconut, and you take a drink. They also have it in avocado. Love it. Now, if you use the code LEAK10, you'll get an additional 10% off. This is the most powerful, most effective antioxidant I have ever had in my life. This puts other products to shame. They don't even they don't even compete. They're not even in the same league. It'd be like comparing amateur blurpity bloops to blippity blops. There's no comparison. C60purplepower.com. Use the code LEAK10, an additional 10% off. They already have specials. Check it out. You'll be glad you did. Now, you sent me something that talks about the fallen angels and the how they've been kind of re-strategizing, and they've created this structure for thousands of years. So I'm going to give you an open platform. I'm going to kick back and listen and take notes and eat non-GMO popcorn.
Are you sure it's non-GMO?
Oh, I'm 100% sure. Forget the GMO, man. Yeah. Glyphosate, no thank you.
Robert, you want to start us off?
Jeez. Where are we starting at the Garden of Eden?
I think so, yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the books you have to read in order to understand human history is the Book of Enoch, sometimes called 1 Enoch. And trying to understand that obviously has errors in it, but it gives us a much better understanding, especially when you compare it to or add it to all the other narratives about our so-called history here on this world. All of it has to be, you have to take a holistic look in order to get a running start at the bigger picture here, which is really pretty astonishing. You know, even for all of us, we've been at this for years, decades, whatever, lifetimes, trying to figure it out. But it's pretty clear that it wasn't just Lucifer, a fallen angel, that interacted with us in the so-called Garden of Eden when we were first planted. The seeds of light, our souls were put here. It seems that there were quite a few other angels that already started the process. So in other words, we see this in Genesis at the very beginning after we are created, and then we see it again in Genesis 6:1-4. We see the fallen angels literally mating with the daughters of men. I would assume that would be the daughters of Adam and Eve. But the intervention, or I should say the interference that it actually began from the moment we arrived in the garden, you know, whatever that is. So we're in that regard, you know, I've had a really hard time understanding or accepting the religious narrative of our sins, right? I think I better stop doing with the quotation marks, but you know,
I think it's
but
good. It works for you.
yeah, I guess. But anyway, look, a
It's
lot of
cool.
this stuff is a lot of this stuff is in the public record, but it's how you analyze it or interpret it. Obviously, everything's open to interpretation, but some of the stuff that Jay and I have been going back and forth about the watchers, the angels, the fallen angels, they came here. They were supposed to. They're messengers, basically, right? They were messengers who ended up making a giant mess of things here for themselves and us. So, and it's been going on for thousands of years, Rex. This is the truly, if you want to decode history, you cannot ignore the fact that these fallen angels have been messing with us since we first were planted here in the garden.
Well, let me jump in on that because I'm glad you brought this up. For some reason, this must be a matrix sync. I have been reading the different Enoch books. I'm on Enoch 2 right now. I'm about
Okay.
halfway through it because I've been, doing sections of it and
Yep.
and decoding it. And one of the things about the first Enoch though is when it says the Watchers they had sex with Earth women, and
Yep.
then the giants were I think they said 3,000 cubits, which that's what it said in the text.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking to myself, that is the size of almost a mile in height, right?
Yeah, it's
So
ridiculously.
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So if they were that wrong there, then how did they get all the other stuff right? Or what are we missing? What's the missing link there? Have you questioned that hypothesis? Because there's a lot of books that describe the story of these Watchers and the fallen ones, but what's up with some of the mistranslations? Does that ever kind of put a block on your research?
You got that.
So this, I bought this actually last July, and because someone on Twitter connected me with the author, his name is Gary Wayne, and said, "Look, Jay, this guy's decoded everything." And I'm like, okay, because at that point in my life last summer, it was a little bit Bible. I wouldn't say Bible thumping because it's an absolutely amazing decoding. I mean, it's almost 800 pages, and he's got citations. I mean, this guy has gone through history, Rex, and he has just torn it apart. So if there's a book out there that you just mentioned that really breaks things down from Enoch to the entire Bible to all the ancient texts, he's got it. And he's actually classified it and cataloged it. And as Robert knows, he has a website that actually breaks down like little snippets of each chapter and then, kind of just baits you and says, hey, now you need to buy the book. But the only thing I wanted to add to what Robert just said, Rex, that this book decodes this, some other books that Robert and I have read recently. One of them is called Nephilim Apocalypse, which is written by Dean Henderson, which is also a very good book. And then this Dr. Robert or Joseph Opar, who also wrote a book in 2017 about the Nephilim. Those guys have essentially decoded our historical narrative as having Moses actually being around during the time of Atlantis. So the disconnect is that we think that Atlantis was this time and age way before the Bible and the flood and all of that stuff. But the truth is that, again, according to these researchers, and I think Robert and I are on this wavelength now, is that Noah was the guy who God came to during this Atlantean time where, again, there was so much dark technology, there was so much engineering, there was DNA, mixing. There was just a lot of like really bad stuff. And if you really start looking at the Ark of the Covenant, and Robert can talk about this too, but it's probably was a technological ship. It was probably, some sort of a craft, and the animals and the DNA and all that stuff that we heard, again, in the simplistic biblical fashion is just, script for DNA technology and whatever else was put on the Ark, which was a ship most likely to save mankind or our, human, whatever we were at that point. I'm sure we were sapiens, to push us into the next age before the flood and, whatever was coming to wipe out. So that for me has really helped my clarification of like when the time of Atlantis was to now, the antediluvian age to like us now, and whether it was 10,000 years ago, 8,000 years ago, I don't think anybody knows.
Yeah, but that didn't answer his question about the giants, Rex.
Sorry.
It's a good. No, it's all right. this is really complex. Okay, this is why it's difficult to understand the bigger picture, because it's very complex and also very convoluted by design. They don't really want us to know this stuff about our history, right?
Right.
So this is why we've been putting so much effort into trying to figure it out. The giants are just one version of what the fallen angels created. They have a whole range of different things that they created. Nephilim is just a word. There's different categories within that nephilistic hybrid genetic experimentation or development, breeding, basically all kinds of weird stuff, and so Edgar Casey talked a little bit about it in his readings. He saw some weird things, but other people, I mean, if you look back at Enoch, you can see this is crazy, Rex. Honestly, something happened in the garden with this entity, and I believe it was angelic. She's always pictured with wings. Is Lilith. Lilith seems to be the counterpart of Lucifer, who goes, again, we've talked about this before, many different names, but specifically in the garden, it's Samael.
Right.
At least in Enoch 1,
Right.
that's how he's described.
Right.
So, and what's really nuts too about this is the way that they seem to be counterpoints of the same entity. In other words, an androgynous entity that is messing with both Adam and Eve from the very beginning. And you got to understand, a lot of this stuff was left out of the Bible or taken out later because these fallen angels and all of their minions and their offspring do not want us to know anything about them. Or more importantly, they can't hide themselves entirely, but they've been distorting the narrative or completely erasing it, just like they're trying to do a lot of. We've been getting serious technical difficulties lately. The other day I was on with Jay, and they just cut me off. I was able to come back, but a few days before that, I was invited Jay on my show. Somebody cut the internet at KGRA. Couldn't broadcast. And we couldn't broadcast the show. It came on a couple hours later after my show slot was up. So, and what's really nuts, Rex, is I was told this a few weeks ago, just before, what was it? Palm Sunday. Yeah. The week of Palm Sunday is when this all started for me. I woke up one morning and I had a very strong message that had come to me. It said, we would like you to ask the people on earth, the humans, the good humans, to invite us to assist them. Now, they are, in my opinion, are the angels of light, the good, benevolent beings that I've been in touch with now for decades. Probably lifetimes. Maybe they really are my family. Like I told you, that whole story about my father on the mountain in the realm of light. So I'm pretty sure that they gave me this message, and it seemed pretty clear. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. But there was also a caveat. They said, you need to be prepared that each show that you do about this topic could be your last. And it wasn't like trying to scare me. They were just being very practical about the fact that this is truly taboo. It's like the third rail of research here. You start going down this path, and you're going to absolutely piss off these Nephilim and fallen angels, the Watchers, and sure enough, yeah, that came true. Also, that same day, I told my wife. I woke up this morning and I said, "Wow, I got this message, and I need to do this. I just want you to be aware of the fact that I'm going to do this, and I don't think we need to be scared about it, but I just need to tell you." This is what I'm going to do. What I agreed to do going forward. That's going to be the focus of my messaging. And so that afternoon when we had lunch, I looked up on the bookshelf. It's not very big in my house because my wife always wants me to get rid of my books. I don't know why. So she doesn't. It's clutter, But to me, it's cool. Right? Anyway. Yeah, no, I have that all, but I mean, I'm old school, Rex. I'm 60
I was joking. That's probably what she's telling you. Yeah.
No, she just doesn't. Okay, look, everybody's got their own thing, but she's got a little bit of OCD when it comes to cleaning or organizing, and she likes me to give away my stuff. Anyway, that makes her happy.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I looked up on the shelf though, and I see this book about angels that I had found in a library last year when I was living in Palm Springs, and I thought, whoa, okay, I got the message this morning, and now I said I should probably read that book. I take it down, and I didn't crack it open until later that evening. I was just like, holy God, what is this? It's a novel. I'm sure Jay told you a little bit about it. I think no, didn't we send you a
No,
link?
we haven't told him anything.
Oh
No.
God.
No.
Okay, so there's two novels, Angelology and Angelopolis, and it's written by the same author. Thank you. That's the second one. I normally don't read novels, Rex. I really don't have time for that, entertainment. But as soon as I started peeling open the book, I was like blown away, because here you go again. It was laying out the conflict that's going on between the angels, God, the angels of light, mankind, or specific units, groups of people that work together. They're called angelologists. The field they're in is called angelology. The people who practice it are called angelologists, but they're not just bookworms sitting in a library,
No.
just twiddling their thumbs going, tough beans, everybody's screwed. The original sin was we mated with these freaking fallen angels, or they mated with us, however you want to look at it, tainted our DNA, screwed with our spirit. Remember, I told you, soul control. Well, these are the guys that are, and women, or whatever you want to call them, these are the ones that are doing it to us. And it's all played out in these two novels, more or less, right? I mean, we know it's fiction, but it's based on fact. Okay. So that's how I started a conversation with Jay about this. I go, man, you got to read these books.
And then he just blew my mind. And I mean, just to add to what he's saying, I mean, Rex, these books are not fiction. Now they're fictionalized,
Right.
but for people like you, me, Robert, and people at our level who, have done all the work and the research and stuff, like you're reading this and it's like an explosion in your head. Like atoms are firing. You're like, what?
chills up your back. It's radical.
There's actually a part in it, I won't give it away, but there's a part where they summons an angel of light, and dude, it is literally, I mean, skin crawling, but also awe inspiring. Like if you're a person of the light, to think of like what that must be like.
Yeah, what was it like?
Well, look, that's what happened to me, Rex. That's what happened to me up on the mountain that night. Because I was meditating and praying on love. I didn't realize I was summoning anybody at the time. I was just trying to, overcome the attacks of the dark side that I had somehow become enmeshed in. But that being, that said he was my father, this being of light, that is what we would call an angel, for sure, an angel of light. And there's no way, I know, look, you and I met on the pretense of what I'd said about Lucifer being my father, right? Enki, specifically Enki, right? So the reason, I'm sure now, looking back on it after doing deep dive into all this angelic or angelology, just an avalanche of information about them and our relationship with them, both good and bad and everything in between, I realized that the reason I had to go down that path and to like intimately get involved with Lucifer, get into his head, get into his mindset and his bloodline, right? His little domain, is because if I hadn't done that, I never would have understood all this other stuff. I never would have been able to put it in the proper context. So it wasn't exactly a mistake. It was part of my life lesson that I could then help others to see this bigger picture of how screwed up we are. And yes, we make mistakes, Rex, but we have been led astray so badly on so many levels by these entities.
It's a circus.
I'm not sure where if it's one Enoch or two, but do you remember, Rex, when Samael comes into the garden and leaves a child with Adam and Eve to take care of okay, so yeah, we'll have to tell him this story, Jay. I read this thing over 30 years ago, that passage we're going to talk about in here, Rex, and I did not understand it. It sounded like complete lunacy to me. Even though I read a lot, I still do, but at the time, and I comprehend what I read fairly well, but this was so bizarre, I couldn't understand it. And even when I read it just a couple weeks ago, I didn't understand it. Jay's like, well, here it is, boom, I was like, what, so I had to read it again. And then I went, oh my God, this is where all the pedophilia and child sacrifice and cannibalism and all this crap, this is where it all came from. So in Enoch, it talks about Samael, Lucifer, whatever you want to call him, Enki, coming into the garden, leaving a young male child and he says, watch this child for me. Okay. Take care of this child. So allegedly he then leaves and Adam and Eve are left with this child that won't stop screaming. It's having a temper tantrum, right? That's the way those are the words I would use. You can relate to that.
Yeah.
The kid will not stop screaming. So what does Adam do? He whacks it in the head and kills it. And yet, according to Enoch, the screaming continues. So what do they do next? What would you do, Rex? Chop up the child and eat it? That's what it says in Enoch. Okay. So like, and that's why I just like, I was so repulsed by that. And it made no sense because even after they ate the child, they still heard the screaming. And then guess who shows up again? Samael.
Our friend.
Samael, and says, "Where's the child?" And they both lied and said, "What child? we didn't see him. We don't know where he is." So they just basically made up all these lies. And then it gets weirder, as if you can imagine how weird this crap is. Supposedly now the soul or the spirit of this entity that they have now killed and consumed is speaking directly from them, from inside them to Samael, and saying, I'm going to, essentially, I'm paraphrasing now, I'm going to possess these two forever. So now they're freaked out. That's why they were kicked out of the garden, according to Enoch. I know. That's how I felt, Rex. When I read it the first time, I thought, no way. Even the second time, I'm thinking, this can't be right. But then Jay kind of put my nose in this pile of shit and said, look at this. Look at what our ancestors allegedly did, eating a child. If that isn't satanic, I mean, what is? It's like it's the origin. It's the nexus of how we got to this point where Satanists have to drink the blood and eat the children
Right.
and all that crap. The other thing about the giants, Rex, is they say they were cannibals. Most of them, they would consume flesh and they like to eat people. Wow. So there's more of that. But okay, you remember last time you and I talked and we went through this whole presentation that I put together about the tree of knowledge of good and evil, right? It was actually a cell tower.
Yeah, the meme.
But where's if you have a cell tower, then where's this thing? Where
Right.
how do they get one? Where was this? Well, that's also in the book of Enoch. I quoted you this before from other sources because it's so-called Jewish mysticism. Like, it's all a myth. It's just a freaking fable. Why make this up? So after God kicks out Adam and Eve for killing this child that Samael brought in, God, according to Enoch, whatever God he's talking to, says,
right.
he could see they were completely freaked out naturally, not only because they were kicked out of the garden, but they just did something. They learned to lie. They're completely screwed up now because of what Samael basically set them up. God, whatever God that is, says, oh, I see you're suffering. Here, let me give you a book that will help you deal with Samael. Now, the book contained all the secrets of the universe, and it was presented to them through an angel named Raziel. So it's often referred to as the book of Raziel.
Right.
It's made of blue sapphires.
Right.
Well, Rex, there's no way that you could make a book out of stone, but you can make those digital devices that glow blue and look.
Blue
see,
light.
it actually looks like a stone. If a person who doesn't understand technology, if you handed this to them, they say, "Oh, that's stone."
Yeah, like a
But
black
it's a book.
stone. Yeah.
It looks kind of like well, actually, it would be larger than this. It would probably be a tablet-sized device.
Right.
And remember we talked about this in the Sumerian, the kings, or the gods, that they had access to these tablets of destiny.
Yeah, they're always holding them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they would use them for, like, they had apps in there that would for medicine or medical communications, warfare, transportation, weather control, all this crap. Well, just like we do with apps today. So anyway, that book was the angels. I don't know which one. I'm assuming it's the fallen angels. They got upset. And they stole this book, this digital device from Adam and Eve and threw it in the ocean. God, this is all in Enoch. I'm not making it. I know this is like the weirdest damn movie. You can't even imagine. God, whatever God this is, says to the other angels, go get the book,
Right.
bring it back to Adam and Eve, which they do. And then so they have this book with all the secrets. It contains all the secrets of the universe, Rex. You think that'll fit into a book? You ever seen a book that has all the secrets of the universe? No. But 60 gigabytes right here, you could put a lot of secrets in there.
Right.
So or a tablet, whatever. The book of Raziel that was given to Adam and Eve is then passed on through their generations, ultimately through Methuselah, Enoch, to Noah, who uses the book to build the ark.
Right. Right.
And more importantly, he builds a golden chest to house the book, which it says in book Enoch, it says it allowed him to tell time when he was inside the ark where there was no light. He also had a device that glowed, a stone that glowed, and that's how they were able to see. So now, okay, you got to understand something about these angels. These watchers gave us their technology, Rex. It's not for our benefit. It was so that we would become dependent. You think we're dependent on technology now? Hell no. This is not new. We've always been dependent on some level on them because that's the way they designed it.
What do you have to say about that, Jay?
Yeah, Jay.
I mean, everything he's saying is true. I mean, I would just, the add to what he was saying is that now we understand why we have transgenerational trauma.
Yeah.
Through all of the descendants and the generations of humans. Like, we're literally born into this world with this trauma. Again, I think of the sins of the father, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Robert just pretty much said it. So essentially this entire game, and we have so much to cover, I don't want to accelerate it, but the whole game of being a human being and physical is to integrate your trauma, to figure out like how you can, I don't want to say go deep religious and say absolved of the sins, but essentially you have this transgenerational traumatic stain, on your soul from all of this. And it's just integration of that trauma, or, what part or what realm relative to your dependence or your connection to those, to the genetics of the different tribes. Because obviously we're all connected. We always talk about unity, right? Like, we know from a soul level, we're all connected. So as Robert said, I mean, to have that going on from the origin of our species, the Adam, and then the whole idea, I mean, we'll talk about it, but the whole idea of Lilith also showing up and how she's been like covered up in all the ancient texts. Somebody sent us a message the other day and said that if you look in the Gnostic teachings and texts also, that really Lilith and Lucifer is just the, name for Yaldabaoth and Sophia. And it's just a combination.
How would they,
what?
Sorry to interrupt. I'm just
No,
wondering.
fine.
Please.
I love the Nag Hammadi scriptures, and one of my favorite books is the Secret Book of John, describing all the Baoth, and then they get into the 365 demons and angels, and the mother of all demons is named Matter, and so they kind of sound like the fallen ones in the technology. But how do you get that connection with Lilith? Because there's a lot that describes Sophia, but I've never seen that Lilith connection, so that'd be fascinating to hear about.
Yeah, I can send you some of that stuff. You know what? I would highly suggest, if people want more on this information, go to my website at unicusmagazine.com and just scroll down. You'll see the thing, the Angel Archive, the big white wings. Click on that. And there's a ton of references in there that I am in the process of adding to, because in the past few weeks between Jay and I, we've been going back and forth on this thing, kind of feeding each other information. And I've just got a mountain of stuff, Rex. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. And I'm also putting in videos, presentations of different people, including ourselves, about this topic, because this is not just idle gossip. This is not, like a small thing at all. It's everything, man. It's everything about understand. If we don't understand this, we're never going to get to the next level of being.
Yeah, because when we start talking about Jack Parsons and the Collins Elite, it's going to tie it all in from a historical narrative, Rex, and it's going to be like, it's like Robert said. I mean, for all three of us, especially you, Rex, I mean, you've done so many interviews and you've talked to so many different people, but there's just been so much deception. We've all been deceived by the fallen ones. And it really, and again, I don't want to skip ahead, but it really goes to the deception of the aliens and the channeling and all these different things.
Ascended masters. Don't forget those guys.
Yeah, the Great White Brotherhood, the Inner Earth, the Garthans. I mean, it just goes on and on. Betraya, my Lord Maitra, Theosophy. I mean, everything is a corruption of them.
Yeah.
Everything, bro. Everything.
Go
So
ahead.
that's a pretty powerful statement to make then. To say that everything is
Thank-
corrupt.
I'm sorry, I'll make it.
Well, and I appreciate that, but let me ask you a question then. So how long ago do you see the information that you've put together? How long ago did they take over? When did that happen?
It's been since day one, dude.
Since we
They've been
first,
playing games.
yeah, since we first were put on this world, Rex.
It's a
They
big
put us
game.
here. They essentially created the body, the vessel, and found a way to harness or capture our soul essence into this body. Is that it? And then there's like a recycle center.
No,
they-
no, no. There seems to be a conflict going on even before we showed up. The so-called war in heaven between these different factions who
Right.
are related. It's more like a family feud,
Right.
you know. And some of the family have gone completely rogue, criminal, and violating the covenant or the directives that were given to them by the Creator.
Right.
What now? That's open for interpretation, obviously, but it seems like the difference I've been telling you guys for years now is about the level of energy or the type of energy that one side embodies is resonance, it's sustainable, it's loving, compassion, etc. It's creativity. Whereas this other group that has fallen into dissonance, they're
Right.
dark, they're manipulative, they can't tell the truth.
And they hate us.
They really hate us because here's the other thing. The reason we were put here as seeds of light, it was to develop to germinate into something amazing.
Right.
By the Creator of the cosmos, not just a solar system. It's not just some dude sitting on a freaking throne somewhere, you know, ruling over a part of the galaxy. It's not like an empirical thing. There's something really much higher going on.
Yeah.
So with that being said, now we're gonna. Do you want to jump onto the Parsons connections? So
Yeah.
before we do, though, I gotta say this is fascinating because Greg Allison, he's a good friend of mine. He's also literally a contractor for NASA. He makes rockets. He's a rocket builder. He has a Guinness records. He has a record in the Guinness Book of World Records in the year 2000 for launching a rocket so high up into space. But we went out to that area called Devil's Dam.
Devil's Gate Dam.
Devil's Gate
Devil's
Dam.
Gate
We
Dam.
went there one night. Greg and I did, and we had an opportunity to explore that area. I did a podcast live when I was there,
Wow.
but we also went underneath this tunnel that's out there that's been in several films, even Back to the Future 2, I think. It was in Back to the Future 2. And when we walked in that tunnel, Greg went, I go, Hugh, and then Greg goes, Halo. And as soon as he did that, you could see this light anomaly. We both got it on two different cameras. This light anomaly came out and went, whoa, and it like flowed with the way that he said halo.
Wow.
We're looking for all these ways to debunk it. Were you wearing a watch? Was it a car light? No, it wasn't a watch. It wasn't a car light. It was something really cool. And I felt like we went out there and that whole thing happened for a reason. I almost felt like it was a part of a ritual that we didn't know we were a part, like we're a part of, but we're not a part of. Like we don't realize it consciously, but something's going on, kind of pulling the strings to put us where we were, and all of that. The way the whole thing happened seemed like higher level consciousness.
Well, did you notice that the face carved into the stone there looks like a demon or a devil?
Oh yeah,
So you saw that part too.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's very similar to reminiscent of the stuff I found in Malibu.
Yeah.
I think the stuff I found in Malibu is a little more distinct, but it's very similar. And you know, you get the full stone face profile, and there's clearly some wild stuff going on there.
I think we're going to take you down that path pretty soon, Rex.
Big rabbit hole.
Was Jack Parsons did the media spin his name? Was he really a bad guy, or was he just like, hey man, I want to see what I can do. Let's
No,
go
he
have an
was-
orgy and make rockets. Yeah, with LSD. All right.
No, he was a disciple of Aleister Crowley,
Yeah.
Oh,
and who had also done a working or a
Yes.
ritual to open up a portal to this other dimension where these fallen angels are. They're not just
Yes.
they're not just here, Rex. They're kind of limited. They're imprisoned. This is again why I was given this message some 3 weeks ago. The reason that the good benevolent angels are asking us to ask them for assistance in this matter is because if we don't, there's a limitation. There's restrictions on how much assistance that they can give us openly. They're still here. The good guys are still here watching and helping, because they know exactly what we're up against, and they're
Yes.
not going to let us get completely steamrolled. However, there is a certain time frame here where we all of us that are still good seeds are being given an opportunity to decide, and that time is coming very short now,
Very soon.
where it's going to end. Our opportunity to decide whether or not we want to reconnect with the light and go forward and move into to our full potential, or do we want to willingly go into the dark side and work
Right.
with these fallen entities? And it's not just the fallen angels, it's all the minions that they created, the hybrids and stuff.
They've got a lot.
The Nephilim. So, when you said NASA, we were talking about this, it's not funny. NASA, actually, in my opinion, is Nephilim Aeronautics Space Agency.
Yep.
Just like New World Order. Jay figured that out. It's the Nephilim
World Order.
or Nephilim World Order. Because they're the ones, they're the elite, Rex. They're the blue bloods. They're the royalty. They're the rulers. They're the 1% that run everything here on behalf of their overlords, the fallen angels.
So Rex,
go
ahead, Robert. I was just going to say, I just want to tie this together with you for Parsons right now, so know, because this was a revelational thing for me and Robert too. And I know you've done a lot of work on Jack Parsons, and you've had a lot of people talk about it on the shows. But so Nick Redfern, and I think you've had him on your show before, right?
Oh yeah, very knowledgeable author, researcher. Yes.
Okay, so Nick wrote a book in 2010 called
Final Events.
Yeah, Final Events. Sorry, I couldn't think of the name of the book. And he interviewed these men, supposedly from this government, very, very compartmentalized, off the records, not listed. You cannot Google any information about them, called the Collins Elite. Now, here's what the Collins Elite was, according to Nick, also according to a couple of guys, Ray Boucher, and some other people who have had meetings or intermediary meetings with these folks in the last 20 years. This group was formed by the Eisenhower or the Truman, actually it would have been the Truman administration. Truman administration, to investigate all of the anomalous things that started happening in the late 40s, right? We had all these UFOs show up. They created this group to investigate. They started to investigate Parsons. They actually got Parsons to admit that he had opened a portal along with L. Ron Hubbard, and that all sorts of shit came through. UFOs, demonic entities, all sorts of stuff that he couldn't even explain. Now, Rex, he admitted this, and this is on record. You can actually go into the Freedom of Information and get this stuff from the federal government, that he admitted opening this portal, and they all came in. Now, here's the craziest part. Right when it happened, the first sighting was the Kenneth Branagh sighting in Mount Rainier in Washington. Robert knows more about this.
Kenneth Arnold,
I'm sorry. 9 UFOs showed up over Mount Rainier, right? Now, here's the crazy thing about the channel and all this stuff. In the last 50 years, we have heard so many channels talk about the 9. The 9. I could give you a bunch of different people. I'm not going to mention names because I don't want to get in trouble. But that's what showed up, okay? Then they got Parsons to admit in their investigation. And then literally in 1952, in June, Parsons blew himself up. And within a month, Robert?
The next month, July.
1 month later, all the UFOs invaded Washington, D.C. And at that point, the Collins Elite, this group, had already concluded, and again, based on talking to Parsons and doing all the other research, and they had done some really good stuff. These guys are smart guys. That it was interdimensional demons, that this was literally not UFOs or ETs or anything like that. And it was interdimensional demons. And this was like literally the holy war, as Robert said, the war in heaven. But then when the attack, or all the UFOs invading, into DC airspace, so many groups inside our federal government got involved in the investigation. And then that's when the fallen, whatever these beings are, demons, Nephilim, whatever you want to call them,
infiltrated.
Yeah, essentially. And brainwashed all of these groups that they were benevolent space aliens. And then they got into everybody's head. And then, as you know, it became George Adamski, the Venusians, Val Thor, Valiant Thor. I mean, you could just name all of these people as the benevolent space brothers here to help. And then Rex, I'm telling you, and Robert and I have decoded this, ever since then, it's been this ET race, Hollywood influencing it. I mean, it goes on and on and on. It's been all this ET. And then the Collins elite, unfortunately, what were they going to do? It was their group in one, and now you've got hundreds of groups inside the federal government with compartmentalized access and all of this different stuff. Now, here's the craziest part. I'm going to let Robert pick this up. But they also found out, Rex, that the only way that you could communicate with these beings was through ritual sex magic, sacrifice, drinking of blood. I mean, this was horrific. And not only did they find that out, they also realized that groups inside the US government, high-level groups, I mean, I don't have to give you the alphabet agencies, were concocting these themselves to communicate with these entities, which are obviously fallen angels. Go ahead, Robert. You can.
Yeah. So the other aspect or component of that, Rex, is what they call sacrament. And you see that a lot in right now. It's in the CIA has admitted this, as well as people in Silicon Valley. They all talk about that they're communicating with these entities by taking certain psychotropic drugs,
right?
Or components like whatever, LSD or DMT or
psilocybin, right?
Well, not so much psilocybin, but ayahuasca. All of those components, all that so-called sacrament, that allows a person to have communion with these individuals. And it's typically a very bad experience for most people, or it's a deal. You're literally making a deal. It's like, we're going to give you technology or information that you can use to your advantage over other humans, but you can't use it against us. There's limitations, restrictions, or whatever, and the whole thing is just a setup. If you ask me, it always ends badly for people that go down that path.
Do you think that there's 200 fallen angels? Do you think that number was accurate in the Book of Enoch when they said?
Yeah, they say that those were just among them, though. I think that's where you get the 9. Is you have the leadership, the ones that originally said, "Look, here's what I propose, and I don't want to suffer this consequences on my own. Who's going to stand with me?" But see, this is predisposing, assuming that it all happened here, as opposed to something that had already taken place. You see, this is the problem we have, Rex, is we're apparently stuck on a battlefield here, which is a hell of a place to plant seeds, or infants, or whatever we are, in our infancy as souls. It's a really strange thing to do. And so the other problem is that, as I told you before, is that the first casualty of war is always truth. Right. Propaganda is a huge problem on both sides. I think, we're obviously more bombarded by the dark side with their narrative, their nonsense. Most of the time is complete idiocy. Some of the lies that they tell us, like we're alone, there's no other life. It's just us until we tell you so. And if we do tell you so, it's got to be on our terms only, so-called disclosure. Right. That's a load of crap. I always felt that was the case, but they're constantly messing with us by creating these boogeymen or straw men, basically, and then knocking them down, right? With the so-called the truth movement, or the just ask the ascended masters to help, or whatever it is. But clearly we've been compromised. I mean, this is one of the reasons I don't belong to any organizations. I don't follow any of them, because they're all corrupt or compromised. And I know there's good people in them for sure, but just generally speaking, they're all compromised, and they cannot tell, even if they know the truth. One of the things about the Collins elite, which basically is a bunch of whether they call themselves or not, they're angelologists. Exactly. They're dealing with the fallen angels, and if they were smart, they would have reached out to the benevolent angels, but
we don't know if they did.
We don't know. See, that's the thing. This is one of the things about the novels that we told you about, those 2 novels. it makes it really obvious that angelology is dangerous. And it's something that it goes on behind the scenes because it is so damn dangerous, not just for the general public to know, but because it really would destabilize civilization.
Oh,
You know,
100%.
if they told us the truth. Go ahead.
Yeah, I
Jay.
just want to add something to what Robert's saying. I told you, Rex, this is pretty not mind-blowing. And we got more, dude. I mean, honestly, like this is the kind of stuff when Robert and I were realizing this in the last 2 weeks, bro, we haven't been able to sleep.
Yeah,
Like we're tying
hundreds of
some
text
things
messages
together.
on this, Rex, and documents going flying back and forth between Jay and I every day and night.
Well, let me jump in on that
Go ahead.
because it's another matrix sync here, in my opinion. Because a couple of weeks ago, maybe it was even last week, I was putting together. I called it the 13, the family of 13, and I was
Yes.
just kind of using that in code words.
Sure.
But I've been doing so much research on the Book of Enoch the past couple of weeks as well. And I'm not going to say any names, and I would prefer you didn't either.
We won't.
There's one passage in particular that I figured out. I figured out a key component, and it's linking to what you guys are talking about.
Yes.
This is so wild because I've been talking about the fallen, and the number 322, Genesis 322, read it, and wow, I'll leave it at that. Read it, and you might go, oh, 322.
Yeah, the
I
skull and
understand
bones.
now.
Yeah, is
Okay,
we not
so-
supposed to say the skull and bones? Sorry.
What's that? I've never heard of that before.
Well,
Hold on. So this is the craziest part, and I know you know this, Rex, from your interviewing of people, but you probably don't know this. And Robert and I didn't know this either. This is the ultimate 2-card Monty hand.
Yeah.
But when Eisenhower met, right, with this so-called top secret alien meeting at Holloman Air Force Base in 1952, which I know you're familiar of, we're both familiar of, you know, they said he had an emergency dental thing, right? And he just disappeared off the grid. And obviously it's very, very public record inside the federal government nowadays about that. But we were told that he was meeting with, you know, the Nordic types, benevolent, white-robed, blue-haired, blonde-eyed, you know, blonde-haired, blonde-haired.
that would be
blue-eyed.
interesting.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Those types.
I like blue-haired, blonde-eyed people.
So you know, who were going to give us tech if we gave up our nukes.
Yeah, just give
And
up.
then
your
the
name.
second group was the Greys. And the Greys didn't want us to give up anything. They just wanted to steal some people, you know, take our
Abduct,
resources
yeah.
and build underground tunnels or whatever, and, you know, be left alone. And so the military general, the junta, you know, they said, oh, we can't give up our nukes, so we'll make the deal with the Graves. Well, the Collins elite and, you know, the research that we've been able to find out, Gary Wayne, some of these other guys, they found out that both groups, the benevolence and the Greys, were the same fallen angels. So they were literally playing both sides of the coin. So no matter what choice we made, we agreed, because as you know, Rex, it's universal law. Always. We must give them our consent. So since that day, and then, you know, technology blew up, the integrated circuits, Roswell, computers, everything has just blown up technologically from then because we said yes. And then, as you know, and God, look around, right? Just look at the last 10 years, the acceleration, you know, quantum computing, everything. It's just now a technologically enslaved world. And, well, hello, we know how it got there.
Yeah, and that's why Eisenhower was freaking out towards the end of his life, and having heart attacks and stuff, because he realized that we've been duped. You know, the thing about Collins Elite too, I forgot to mention, is that even though there were some people within that group that were, you could say, fundamental Christians,
Right.
or at least realized the good side was something that they wanted to work with. They were overridden by other members of the same group who were saying, no, we want to work with the dark side.
Right.
And we'll make a deal with them, and it'll be to our advantage.
Exactly. And they were doing literally ritual sex magic and sacrifices to connect with them even then. So imagine what they do to your brain when you play that game. I mean, as soon as you go down into here, you know, your vibration drops into here, they're easily piloting you. We know they pilot you.
Yeah.
Let me add to that then. I think this is interesting. The interface now that we're dealing with, this digital interface, virtually everything we do has some type of digital connection.
Right.
Are they going to create a full integrated system where everything has some type of digital connection so that they can not only interfere with it, but also maybe overtake it in a sense of using electronics as a medium.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit the key word there is electronics. Rex, we're electrochemical beings on a physical level. On a soul level, it's all about what we call electricity.
Exactly.
The web of light that I told you about is electric. It is a conveyor of electricity or light or information, life, whatever you want to call it. But that's being overridden. The frequencies of ever since like the 1820s is when so basically about 200 years, we have been influenced by the fallen ones to develop this dark technology that we call now electricity. Did you know we don't generate, we call them generators, but they don't generate electricity. They actually harvest. When the coils spin, they're harvesting the electromagnetic fields or the cosmic web of light that's connected to the planet. They're literally harvesting those fields and then distilling it and broadcasting it. Just like you take oil out of the ground, right? And you turn it into pollution and all kinds of crap. And just like we take radioactive material out of the ground and turn it into something toxic, they have taken something natural and beautiful and life-supporting electricity and it influenced us to create a technology just like they had in Atlantis that is based on dissonance. And it's called electronic smog or electropollution. There's a book. I just posted this book today. I gave
The
it
Electric
to
Rainbow.
No, it's called The Invisible Rainbow. I
The
posted
Invisible
the
Rainbow.
link.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Rex, this is really important. Let me just read this really quick because hold on. Come on. Why isn't it? I guess I can't do anything while I'm still. What did I send you? Oh, okay. Apparently this recording is taking control of my computer. Anyway, it said that every time that we increase the level of electronic smog through radio or television or whatever, the whole population suffers something that we call influenza. Does that sound familiar?
Oh,
So our bodies can't handle that. It's because here's what's happening in this book, The Invisible Rainbow. It says that the Schumann resonance is really what they're saying there is our connection to the cosmos or the cosmic web of light. That's what they're calling it. I know you and I talked about the electricity before, but this is really important. We are literally being cut off. The frequency of the dissonance, and it's not just like, so I'm trying to tell you, they keep ramping it up over the last 200 years. Now we're at 5G and going. The reason being is because that's the frequencies that they are comfortable with. The fallen angels,
right?
They are comfortable. Their domain, which is close to us, but it's above us or outside of our realm. At some point, when we reach a threshold, Rex, they're going to be able to come in, and it'll be like no problem for them.
Right, exactly. They'll be manipulated. They'll be in and out. Like they'll be in 3D with us. And by the way, just to add to what you're saying, dude, their primary goal is recreating Atlantis.
Right.
Because in their mind, Atlantis, before it fell, was right there, Rex, technologically, to blow a hole in the dimensional warp so that they could, I mean, there's an interview in that one of the documentaries that we didn't talk about, but it's called what was it called? The Lost Identity, or what was that? The documentary? Higher Entities, Robert. Yeah. Which Rex is really, really good. That Robert and I watched over the weekend. But they interviewed a guy, and they said that the goal was to rip a hole in the portal because they honestly feel that they're going to fight God and win, which is obviously shows you how homicidal, psychopathically that these Nephilim fallen angels are, but they actually are mounting up, preparing to fight God, and they really think they're going to win. Some of the research that we've looked at shows how simple it was that they were warping John Dees, Sir Francis Bacon, right? Sir Francis Bacon was the mastermind behind the United States, the New Atlantis. He was the guy.
Yeah.
He was the guy behind this entire country. You know, when the founders, you know, were giving it to as kind of a precedent in the late 16th century or early 17th century. So the bottom line, all of the people, I'm not going to mention any more names than him, but as we gotten closer, we could think of the people like in the early World War I, World War II, the great dictators. I don't need to mention names, but they were all influenced, Rex, by these beings or their minions. And their minions, by the way, were always like great persuaders. Edward Bernays. I mean, I can give you so
Watson.
many people. Yes.
Yeah, Watson. All those people. The eugenics movement. It's
Yes.
all coming from the dark side, from these fallen angels and their minions, the Nephilim.
Exactly. All of it, Rex.
This is really interesting because I had a conversation yesterday with my friend Diamond from Oppenheimer Ranch about, I said, Diamond, why don't you believe in aliens, man? Because there's this one guy. I said, I'm cool with it. I'm just wondering. And he's like, well, Rex, there's this book you should read called Five by, I think it was by Adrian D'Amico or something. And you're talking about the different civilizations. And he described that once you get to a level 2 civilization, even, there would be absolutely no reason for traveling different planets and doing abductions and experiments on people and any type of these ritualistic things you're talking about. So I'm wondering if these beings that they made contact with, you're describing, they come from somewhere else. It's not like, I just don't see it being in this particular visible universe, because if it was, and if they were so advanced, like, why are they doing what they do? Why is it so important for them to do these kind of disgusting rituals and hurt people and harm life? It's the opposite, right? Like when most people think, okay, well, continuation of life is a good thing. You want to help people, you want to help your family, you want to help your friends, you want to help the world and do what you can. And then these things are like, let's just destroy it. Let's ruin it. Let's sacrifice it. Why? Are they mad?
Yeah.
Are they like, do they feel like they didn't get something? So it's like a revenge mechanism for them. I mean, do they feel like they should have been given this? So they're jealous of us? What is it?
There's some of that. There's all of that and more. I think that we can't quite understand, Rex, because we're not psychopathic. We're not evil. We're not in the dark side. It's like you can't. How can you rationalize the criminal mind? Allegedly, they violated a directive, which was to watch over this new creation on this world.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, let me just jump in. I get the fallen for hot women thing. I get that. We've all been there, right? So the story behind it is they fall in love with women because they're so beautiful, and then they go and they have sex, right? Were they evil, or were they just like, dude, those chicks are freaking hot, man?
Yeah, but it started before that, Rex. That's why I started in the garden. There was already, the leadership was already doing this without all the other.
I see what you're saying. Right. Like you brought up earlier.
Yeah. And the other thing is we don't have an accurate timeline. I wish we did, man. Cause I used to do that. I learned to do that when I was working at Honda Research and Development. You can see it in my 2 books. I did timelines about the hidden history of UFOs in Washington, DC. And you can see the trends. You can analyze them clearly. If you have enough data and it's accurate, you start to get a very good understanding of the ebb and flow, right? But we're not getting that. We don't have access by design. The fallen ones have done a really good job. Now, they had to have some physicality, Rex, or there's no way they could have mated with us.
Right.
Well, and then the Nephilim are physical.
They're the hybrid. They're the offspring of the mating.
So exactly, and they're carrying out the will of their bosses, which are their fathers, the Nephilim. I mean, the fallen ones. So, but Rex, one of the things too we hacked through that we have to talk to you about with the Nephilim is the egg.
Oh God. Let's ask a question, Rex. Why do we during Easter, the time of resurrection of Christ, allegedly? What's the thing about Easter eggs? Do you have any idea?
Well, I thought it was more connected with Isis, which would be Inanna or Ishtar, the queen of heaven, and she's fertility. So bunnies are connected to fertility. And that's where I thought that might have came from.
You're actually on the path.
You're getting close. I figured this out the other day though, because I see these rabbits everywhere around the house where I'm living.
Horny rabbits. Sorry. Yeah. They're fallen angels too, man. I knew it.
No.
I knew it. I'm sorry.
No,
I'll stop.
it's a kind of a, the whole thing is coded and it's hidden in front of our faces.
Plain sight.
Rabbits live underground. The fallen angels live in the underworld.
Right.
And so here's the thing, Rex, and in the book number 2, Angelopolis, it talks about the royal families all want to be have the most purest blood connection to the fallen angels.
Yes.
Now, there's a whole debate as to whether angels have wings or not. Some of them do. At this point, I'm just going to say some do, some do not.
Right.
All right. But the more pure blood angels
Do.
they do. And Rex, where do feathered creatures come from? Eggs. And so it, as you see in the book, it's like, this is where the whole concept came from. It's sort of like a joke on us, is that we can't understand it, is that and then why they tied it in with Christ is because they think of themselves as elevated over us, right? And yet it says, we're told somewhere in the scriptures, it says that someday that we would rule over the angels. What they forgot to put in there was rule over the fallen angels, because we will be elevated above them. But in the meantime, the Nephilim, the elite, the blue bloods, they all worship, like Jay was saying, they all work for the fallen angels, their fathers. But they also know that if somebody in their family, like you said, the 13 blood families, those are all Nephilim.
Yep.
Every last one of them. But yes, every last one of the 13 families has
Nephilim.
Blue blood or purple blood or whatever you call it is directly related to they're related to these fallen angels by blood. Okay. So if one of them could give birth to a more angelic hybrid, it would be literally through an egg. Egg at birth, birthing an egg. I know. And let me just, the day I got that book was right around Easter. My wife had downloaded some stuff off the internet from the White House with a little line drawing of Easter egg, because you can't go do Easter eggs. You can't go out. You can't socially be close to anybody or whatever. So they said, no Easter egg hunt, but why don't you print this out and color it in? So she does this. She puts wings coming out of the egg, and a
Robert
cross.
Sends it to me and says, "Look at this."
And she tapes it up on the wall, and then she says to me, "Robert, what does eggs have to do with Jesus' resurrection?" I'm like, I don't know. That's a good question, because I've always wondered that myself. It seems like a huge disconnect. Then I get the book number 2, right? Angelopolis. I'm reading through it. I'm like, oh my God. I just put the book down. I go, honey, you're not going to believe it. Here's the answer to your question, since you asked. And it's just like, God, this stuff is crazy, Rex.
And great. And just to add to that, and Rex, you have to read these books, because your brain's going to fall out of your ear, dude. They're that unbelievable.
It's really intense.
But all of the architectural artists from like the from the Renaissance all the way up into they always were commissioning these high level people, and I'm not going to name any names, to paint eggs, like all through history.
Yep.
There's all these amazing pictures of eggs by these commissioned famous artists and architects and all of this stuff, and it's even all throughout Europe, and it's because they were all documenting the hope of the
bloodline
egg birth.
Yeah, the bloodline back to the angels. The
So
ones with
Jesus
wings.
Born in an egg?
But what?
You think Jesus was born in an egg?
Oh man, since you brought that up, okay, this is another debate I had with my wife. She says, "Well, Jesus is the Son of God," and I said, "But that's what they called the fallen angels too. The sons of God, mated with the daughter. Yes, sons of God, mated with the daughters of men, in order to create the hybrid Nephilim, right? So, and what do we know about Jesus's birth? Guess who showed up for that? Gabriel, an angel. Now, the question is, did he do more than just talk to her? Was he delivering a message, or was he delivering something else?
Right. He was the one.
Possibly impregnated. Maybe. I personally think that's a very, very real possibility. He was very busy. You also heard of this thing called the Quran? Allegedly, Gabriel, the angel, was dictating that to Muhammad, who was totally illiterate
Right.
at the time. So, are they interfacing with us? You better believe it. Now, as far as Jesus, Rex, I think I showed you the picture of the transfiguration where he goes up on the mountain and he's glowing in the dark. And Elijah, who was also taken up into heaven in some kind of chariot of fire, and Moses suddenly just appear. At least that's what it looked like to his disciples. They just poof, they're just there. And there's some sort of voice or light over him saying, "This is my son with whom I'm well pleased." It's like, well, okay, is that supposed to be Jehovah, or what's going on here? I mean, again, I know the story has been completely distorted, but there's something really major going on. The other thing they say about Jesus was that allegedly when he was in the tomb, the shroud, the only way the Shroud of Turin could have been was if there was a huge burst of light coming out of the body. And we talked about that before. Where's that coming from, right? Isn't that angelic? Because it's not just about the wings. I mean, this is in those books. It talks about electricity coming out of the angels, especially the benevolent one. Oh my God, when that thing shows up to destroy some of the dark Nephilim, I think they call it Giborims.
Yeah, they go Borum.
The Nephilim, the Watchers, they have created, like I said, all different kinds. They have like subclasses. There's a hierarchy. Some of them are just servants or warriors or whatever. So this particular scene that Jay and I are talking about, when the benevolent angel shows up because it was summoned to assist, and that was the other thing. When I got to that part, I'm like, wait a second. Didn't they just ask me to ask them to assist us? And here I am reading in this freaking fictional book. I mean, it just gets, it's so bizarre, Rex. There's no way that could just be a coincidence. It has to be synchronicity, right? Or confirmation.
Oh yeah.
And Rex, we haven't got to the end yet.
Well, good, man. I'm
sorry,
still
Rex.
on the edge of my seat here. I got a little bit of popcorn left, and let me light up another one.
Oh my God,
goodness.
Dude. Well, I mean, so that's the thing is like, Robert and I get all this information, right? And we're just mind blown at how it's all literally all these like disparate pieces that we've all been reading are all now seemingly tied together.
Yeah, they are.
But we're fighting the idea that, well, wow, the Bible thumper Christian, hardcore Christians people are the one that's had it right all along, even though we were like dismissing it because we wanted to, piece in the reptilians and the ETs and everybody else, right? Or whatever we think is out there. But we come to find out, and again, through these guys, brilliant research, Gary Wayne, obviously Trussoni. And by the way, we didn't even say Trussoni was clearly, what was she, a 33-year-old girl, Robert, when she wrote this book?
I'm not sure she was. Yeah, she was very young. Daniel Trussoni. Yeah. That was her first novel, Angelology. It's 400 pages, just mind-bending stuff.
Yeah. Rick, there's no way, as obviously Robert and I have written a number of books. I mean, to be a first-time author and to write something that profound, it's nearly impossible.
Yeah. Somebody was giving her insight on it for sure. Maybe not so much the second book, but anyway, look, there's this, oh my God, this explains everything. Now, since you brought up fundamental Christianity, Jay, I still think they don't understand fully because they're interpreting it through a dark lens.
Agreed.
And that, again, this is the big problem. I've told you before, all human agencies have been influenced or corrupted, co-opted, whatever you want to call it. So it's called fleecing the flock. Basically, they know how to, the dark ones, they know how to, if they don't have to manipulate everybody, they just look for the so-called leadership and compromise them, co-opt them, and then it just poisons the consciousness of the rest of those who are following the leader. And it works. It's worked very well.
Yeah, and
for a long time.
In part 2 of the book, the Angelology book.
That's the second book, yeah.
They really give you a detail of like how the fallen have created their hierarchy of the Nephilim in the leadership positions in governments around the world, and how they, like Robert said, you talked about the 13 royal families, whatever we want to call them, the Illuminati.
Yeah.
They have this giant hierarchy that they've created, and they rule from the shadows, as you know. And, to fast forward to now, to what we're dealing with right now, and just to kind of summarize the whole thing, and both of us can, go with it. Robert's right. The fundamental Christian people are looking at this with a very dark damnation, fire and brimstone, tribulation, rapture, endgame. And really what it probably is, and this is just a hypothesis, but everyone is concluding the same thing that is on this, especially Redfern, especially the Genesis 6 conspiracy. But what we're seeing right now, Rex, is the move to tyranny, right? We're seeing it now everywhere. And clearly the Nephilim, and I'm sure their bosses, are pushing us into this whatever is to come. And both Robert and I feel, and we can't prove this, but the data shows this, that however this is going to work out, but somebody, whether it's Trump or on his side or whatever, and again, this is a supposition, is going to save the day in some capacity in the next 4 to 6 months, 6 to 9 months, 7 to 8 months, soon. Most likely, in my opinion, I think Robert shares it with me, before the election. And I don't know how he's going to save the day. But something is going to happen where the bad guys, the people who love us so much, Rex, are going to get arrested or called out. Let me finish. And be made to be the fall guys for all of this.
Scapegoats, yeah.
The scapegoats. And then they're going to recapitalize the people. They're going to do a debt jubilee. They're already talking about debt jubilees. And the world is going to be jumping up and down, like, forgive everybody's debts. The world's going to be jumping up and down. We're all good. Everything's great. Oh my God, Trump and whoever is, on his side saved the world. They took down all the bad actors. And then that's the beginning, bro, of the fallen angels' true one world religion, one world government. But what we didn't talk about, which is very likely, which you're very familiar with already, is Bluebeam. How do they make this right? Well, Robert and I think that they are going to land, and they are going to come to Trump, and Trump is then going to go to the world and say, "This are your saviors. They are the ones that investigated the dark beings that have been sacrificing our kids and blah blah blah." I won't name names, and then throw them to the wolves, and say, but oh, by the way, their technology, they're also much higher spiritually than we are. So, dude, how simple is it? One world government, one world religion. And then that's, again, I don't want to go down the whole Bible path, but
you're going full revelation on us here.
Well, I'm not, though, because realistically, the evidence proves that this is the path that it's heading. And obviously, Robert and I don't know if the good angels are going to intervene before any of this happens. And we think that they can. It's up to us to call them, to ask for assistance. But Rex, you and I know, Robert knows, most people on this planet right now are servile. They've lost their freedom. They're so compressed from what's happened in the last 6 weeks that most people will just walk around outside with, how many people do you see driving down the road with masks on in their cars?
A lot.
Yeah.
So
Southern Colorado, even.
Everywhere.
Kind of like 50 people, they're doing it.
So people are scared, and they're servile, and they're complacent now. So you can very easily see that most people will just hold their hands up and say, "Chippy, give me the vaccination, I'm ready." So how hard is it going to be for them to not enforce the NWO?
Well, what I'm seeing is I'm seeing some pushback. I'm seeing actually the globalized system is, after this opportunity for them, it went sour, I think, in many ways. Now, with that being said, some hedge fund organizations made billions and billions of dollars.
Of course.
There's been massive bailouts. I'm not talking about the financial institutions that figured out a way to profit off of this, but
skim the till.
Well, yeah, to skim the till, brilliant. But it does like trillions of dollars of skimming the till. But it does seem that instead of people saying, you know what, sign me up for this digital paper where I've got to have digital papers and digital vaccines. And it seems like people are like, wait a second. I can grow my own food. I can hook up with somebody that has a farm. I can become friends with the rancher over there and get my meat locally. I can have a couple of chickens, or even if you've got your own apartment, you can have an herb garden in your apartment. People,
absolutely.
This is kind of going back to the micro community and microeconomy, and I do see that hypothesis that you brought up, Jay, and the possibility of there being this false hope and this great leader bringing everything into a wonderful scenario, and people are happy and everything's going good. And then all of a sudden these new saviors come in and they've got even more technology. So that's been talked about for a long time.
Exactly.
The question is when. So time will tell. We'll find out. We'll definitely find out, because man, elections are coming up. And man, what a great time to win re-election is to say you're friends with aliens, right? Check it out, man. I got laser beams and spaceships. You better reelect me or else.
But you're right, Rex, because exactly, I was just going to say that. You read my mind. But that's where we're at right now. Like, logically, what else can happen? I mean, again, you look around, we haven't talked about current events, right? But nobody has any answers for what's going on right now. It's insanity. The states are saying, oh, well, I'm going to open up on May 1st, or this state will do this. And then you've got the federal government, the Trump administration saying, oh no, you can't reopen until you have 14 days of blah, blah. So we're in obviously crazy, zany, whatever you want to call it, times, which again, it doesn't take a person with, without eyes to see and ears to hear that we're on a march towards tyranny. I think that the population, you squeeze them a little bit longer, right? Let's say this goes on another couple months. The people will be so shaken, living constrained mentally, still wearing their masks, doing all this insanity. Robert sent me a link today about the USTA's tennis rules. I mean, the insanity of the tyranny is nuts. So
there's hundreds of new restrictions.
Rex, I think it's pretty simple. I wouldn't even say it's simple. I would think it's logical. I would argue that it's logical now to see people losing it, and then for them to have this quote unquote savior occurrence. Now, as well as I do, you've had me on, we've talked about this on previous shows. There's a lot of foretelling that Trump is the last president, right? That book that was written by the Tesla, all that stuff. So there's a lot here logically debate that you make a very cogent argument to say that if Trump was, or his team or the White Hats or whoever they are, was to save the day in some capacity, there wouldn't be an election. Why would they elect? There would be no more two-party system. We have these beings that are going to be the saviors. I mean, it just seems that this is the path that we're walking on. And I will say this, like in my meditations and in my deep, deep contemplations, I've been asking, am I off? Is this wrong? And and I've been only doing this for like the last 15 days. And by the way, I just went into it for a second there, but like, I get the feeling of hairs on my right arm jumping up and then on the back of my neck. And every single time when I've asked, am I way off? Is this crazy? I have not gotten that. I have gotten that this is the path that we are heading, but it still comes down to our collective vibration, deciding what we want. Do we want the new world order? Do we want the third Antichrist? Do we want the new leadership or the aliens or whatever? Or do we want to manifest something different? And I still think we have the ability to do it, but I'm looking around and I see people wearing masks in cars with their head down.
Yeah, but it's because it's an individual choice. It's not going to be some like, 51% say we should go with the dark side, and it's going to be an individual choice. I told you this multiple times, you guys. The way it was explained to me, that between 2013 and 2022, or the beginning of 2023, there's a 10-year window there where we're going to have to make a decision. Everything was going to be revealed. Everything.
It is happening.
And it's happening. And like every day I keep thinking, well, we're getting there. And then like, no, check this out. I'm like, geez. So, and it's shocking people. It really is. But some people, the reason it has to happen, like Jay was saying, is because we have to give our consent.
Yeah.
We have to make a choice. But how do you make a choice really, unless you've been fully informed? Especially when it comes something about the destiny of your, or the the path, the trajectory of your soul. You got to we have to be given all the information in order to be a fully informed decision. And it's not a trivial thing. Like I was saying before, this is huge. This is really everything about the future of our souls, individually and collectively. So it's not a one size fits all, but some people are already awake clearly, and they watch shows like this, obviously. And thank you for doing this, Rex and Jay. You guys have
Thanks for
put a
being
lot
here,
of effort
guys.
into this, huh?
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, we love you guys.
Yeah, this is how I met you. All you guys, it's the three amigos.
The three
So-
amigos. Right
So,
on.
but the thing is, we're
I
going
was
to
thinking
have.
the Three Stooges. Sorry.
I was thinking that too, actually. But okay, look.
All we have to do is shave Robert's head. It's Larry Curly. and
Oh,
Marlon.
yeah.
Oh, okay. We interrupted him like 5 times. Let him. Okay. Pattern interrupt. I'll stop. What were you saying, Robert?
Okay, so but it's coming up really soon. Everything's going to come out.
is.
Everything's going to come out. We've been going back and forth about a lot of things, but it's true. Reagan said this multiple times. If we're faced by a threat, they've already gamed it. They've already done the studies on it. They know it's like a tabletop exercise. They know exactly how we'll react, or at least most of us are going to fall for this crap
Yes.
about, well, here's the threat and here's the solution, and they'll just take us right down into a happy place. If we just
You're right.
follow what the officials tell us, then we'll be okay. But it's never been like that.
No.
And it's never going to work because the whole game has been rigged from the day we were put here, planted in the garden.
Just to add to that, Rex, check this out. Think about it like this. All these people have lost their jobs. So many people have lost their incomes. They've lost their way. If you were to come and say, I'm going to absolve you of your debts and I'm going to give you $25,000 or $30,000 or whatever it is, depending on the state, you're going to not, if you're not awake. And even if you are awake, if you're in that third dimensional vibration, you're going to take that open-handed, consented. I consent. Please help me. And so that's why it's seemingly, as Robert said, it's an individual choice. It's going to come down to what we are. Again, I always go back to vibration, but being aware. And if you're not aware, then I guess whatever happens is whatever happens. And I don't think any of us know it. I mean, I know a lot of us think that we've lived many, many lives. And I know I have, but it's like, are you as a being at a soul level, as Robert said, at our base essence, our electric, whirring electrons, are you accepting of who we really are and why we're really here? And what is the purpose of all of this?
Yeah. Well, do you know the saying here on this planet is just ignorance is no excuse for the law. You're still culpable. You have to be held accountable. The same is true for there's higher authorities involved in all of this, and they're watching us.
Exactly.
And there's no way you cannot game that system. You can't cheat the cosmos or God or creator, whatever, and expect to get away with it. And it's really not punishment, Rex. I just want to be really clear with you and your audience about this. It's a choice.
Always.
Those of us who choose to cheat and hurt and steal from others are really screwing ourselves, because that's a guaranteed, not just to the lower frequencies, but it's going to, we are choosing to go, and even when we leave our physical body, that's where we're going to end up in the so-called underworld or the lower astral, hell, whatever you want to call that realm. It's actually, that is the evil empire. That's where the dark side has dominion. Yeah. These fallen angels, and it's not just limited to this world. That's one of the things we found out in the Ami books. The dark side is not only real, it's universal, and it's serving a purpose.
Balance.
Right? Yeah, because and that is the ultimate goal here, or on other worlds. When technology and science eclipses spirituality and love, the whole damn thing collapses. And in the process, the dark side will harvest all the souls who choose to go on that path of dissonance, deception, manipulation, and cruelty. They get sucked into that. Where it's sort of like the movie Ghost, I thought that was a really profound little demonstration graphically of where the evil people, they're like these dark things come and grab them and take them into the underworld, whereas the good guy, I forget his name, Patrick Swayze, when he is fully released, when his soul is released from the earth, the beings of light come and take him into that higher realm, and he ascends into the so-called heavens or whatever. For sure, that's how it
Hollywood
works.
loves to tell us, don't they?
Well, they have to, like you were saying, they have to telegraph. They have to give us some sort of because they want our permission.
Universal law, yeah.
Yeah, they want our permission, and more importantly, the reason they do that, Jay, is because in the court of the higher authority, they can use that as a loophole and say, "Hey, look, we told them, and they chose to come with us.
Right.
So back off. We didn't really violate anything if they agreed." Right.
Well
And
said.
so that's why we have to start with the original sin. I know we were tricked, our parents, or whatever. The original seeds of light that were planted in the garden were tainted, but on some level, did they agree to it? Apparently so.
Right. And Rex, just to add up, just to finish a positive, right? Because I mean, this has been a pretty dark podcast. We, as Robert said, and I know I've added to it, but I just want to just summarize it to say that you still, no matter what happens, and none of us know, we can all surmise and guess, and logically we think we have a good idea of where it's going. It's, as Robert said, the Bible said, you will be known, or not judged, but they will know them by their fruits.
Yeah, you will know them.
You will know them by their fruits, and every hair on the head is counted.
Yeah.
So what that really means is your vibration. Have you been, as Robert always says, in service, compassion, caring, concerned, kind, serving other people at your highest intention? If you have been one of those people, you got nothing to worry about.
Yeah,
no matter what happens, no matter what the end game is, you don't have anything to worry about, because we all know that we are at base essence warring electrons. Our souls are plasmatic fire, orbs, whatever. And if you're a good being, you're going to go where good beings go. And as Robert said, if you're not a good being, you're going to, not go. And my final statement is, and by the way, I love you, bro. This has been an amazing podcast. I appreciate the opportunity every time I see you, but the love you make is equal to the love you take at physical meat suit expiration.
Wow.
Oh, man.
That sounds like lyrics.
Yeah. Get the guitar. Start singing. That was great. That was great. Robert, add some enlightenment.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to, I mean, look, I'm always very optimistic, but realistic at the same time. These are the times that try men's souls. We've been living through the apocalypse, which is also known as revelation. Everything's being revealed, and I know how difficult that is, how shocking. Some people can't tolerate it very well. They're just checking out. But that's just because you don't make a choice. That's in essence, it's still a choice. You're not being judged for that. You're making a choice. We are always making choices. It's the choices we make and the actions that we take is what determines where we go within creation.
Exactly. Including
the dark side, which I used to think was a mistake. It's actually serving a very beneficial purpose for all of us individually.
For evolution, yeah, for spiritual evolution. That's why the dark is there, for balance.
And also to keep creation from getting completely out of control. Because free will is a huge factor. We have to not only be given a choice, but there has to be some restrictions on the kind of choices that we make. Because if we choose to destroy all of creation, well, how is that going to be good, right? So there has to be some restriction, just like in a motor, in a car. It's called a governor.
Right.
It keeps the engine from revving so high that the damn thing blows itself up. Or in a circuit system, you have a so-called circuit breaker to keep the thing from overloading. Well, that's what the dark side does. That's what it is. It's serving that function. I know it's kind of sounds a little strange, but I believe that's an accurate description of it. Hey, before we close, I want to thank the people who go to my website. I want you to understand something. That is for you. I do that for all of you because I love you, because we're all family. And I'm doing my best. It's not always great, but I'm doing my best to help everybody figure it out. All right. And I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm just saying that the information I'm providing on the website, and I don't know if you've been there in a while, Rex, but I've done a lot of you seen it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I changed the design, but I've also I'm focusing more on what we're talking about here. In fact, I can't think of anything more important. So I'm going to be putting a lot more material on there. If you go to my website, if you can afford it, please, thank you. Please make a donation, because I spend a huge amount of time, and it does take money actually to run this thing. So if you could, please, go ahead, scroll down, show people what's there. There's that book, Invisible Rainbow. Most everything on my website is free, and I hate ads. I think it just pollutes the landscape. It's very distracting. So
scroll back up, because what Robert said is very important. And let me just add to you guys, Robert, I don't know anyone online that puts out more free information than Robert. I mean, I give all my stuff away for free, as you know, too, Rex, but I mean, Robert is just tireless. And that's right there. If we can make anything more important than this whole podcast, it is time for humankind to request assistance from the angels of light. We have to ask for their help. Every night before you go to bed, ask them for assistance. I mean, I've been doing it for years. But
yeah, that was amazing what you told me. What was more confirmation when you said that, like, man, I've been doing that for,
I mean, I routinely put out my prayers that I call in the angels, especially St. Michael's. I have a prayer to St. Michael's for clearing. The Archangel Michael, because he's the battle angel. And we are in a war for our souls. It has always been that way, whether you deny that or what. It's a reality, and it's never been more clear. And so ask for assistance when you connect. And obviously, connecting with your higher self is connecting with God, the angels, your guardians, your benevolence. So learn to do that and do it. It's that simple.
Dude, you've done a great job with the updates. And Jay, you're so right on to that, Jay. You have gone so far the past few years, I feel like, mentally, and like your expansion. You've always been in great physical shape, but your mind, it seems like, has gone next level, and I think that's wonderful. And
his soul, it's his spirit, his spiritual fitness is elevated like quantum leap.
Yeah.
I get to hang around with guys like you. I mean, what do you want?
Stop it. You did it yourself, Jay. Come on.
And you're always so calm and collected, even when you bring up the doomiest of subjects. You do it in a way that's like, the end of the world could happen, but you just got to have that high vibration, man. It's all good. Check it out on Lucas Magazine. You'll see. I got it all right here.
Hey, even if the world as we know it was to fall like Atlantis fell, it would reset itself, because that's what the cosmic web of light does. It creates worlds. It's constantly regenerating. We wouldn't even be alive if that wasn't here. It's not just about the sun. All the suns are connected. All the planets are connected to the cosmic web of light, and it creates life. It also communicates. It's where all consciousness is connected through that. So why wouldn't we want to connect or reconnect? The only thing is we've been cut off. In the Bible, it talks about the tares. Not a tear like this, not the fabric. It's the weeds that were planted in the garden next to us, along with the rest of us, the seeds of light. And that's just been a huge challenge. But honestly, I think that it was permitted to happen that way so that we would end up being much stronger. Those of us that survived it would grow to be incredibly strong, incredibly wise, incredibly loving. Even in the face of adversity, we come out of it stronger. That's just what I think.
I agree.
Right on. Special forces for the soul.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. Guardians of divinity. Yes, we are ultimately, those of us who are special forces are guardians of divinity.
That's good, man.
It's
Guardians
a Jedi thing. Yeah.
That's a movie right there, man. I like that.
Wow. Don't give it away. It's in my novels. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, you guys.
Thank you, Rex.
Let's do this again sooner than later.
Okay. Sure. Well,
let's do this again. And are you still doing radio?
Yes, I'm. If they let me.
Let's go on.
Yeah. I'm on Saturday nights from 8 till 10 Pacific on KGRA. It's only on the stream. You can't get it any other. Have to be on the internet in order to hear it. But it's I'm in the top 5 of streaming talk shows right now. Not that I really care. I'm just saying it's a very popular show, and Jay's going to be my guest on Saturday if they don't cut the feed again. But
Rex, just a quick shout out, because I know you know this. My new website launched 2 weeks ago. So Great. It's just jccampbell.com. but actually I'm having it re-engineered right now because I'm putting a bunch of free stuff like what Robert does on my site too. And obviously I'm working on my spiritual book right now. But again, for anybody who watches this, that's interested in any of the physical optimization, feel
Wow.
free to just send me an email. It's just
Guns,
contact.
man.
Thanks. It's contact at jccampbell.com. And we will send you all the books for free. Absolutely no problem. There's like 5, 6 of them now.
Hey, I just
That's-
want to close by saying, Rex, I love you. And
Love you too,
and
bro.
for some reason, thanks. For some reason, if this is the last time I get to broadcast, thank you. Honestly, because you've helped me reach so many people around this planet at a time when we really need to communicate these messages and elevate our consciousness. I can't really thank you enough for doing that, for helping me.
Dude, I feel honored to speak with you. And every time we talk, I feel like the vibrational levels have gone up just a little bit higher. So
Cool.
We're in the terahertz level now, folks. And man, that's a scary thought to think about. So I don't even want to have that thought about this being our last podcast, because we have so many more opportunities. And I'm going to be like Arnold and say this, folks. I'll be back.
Cool.
And be the change you want to see, everybody. All right. That didn't sound quite as cool as Arnold does it, but I'll be back.
Beautiful.
And I'm going to bring Robert with me and Jay.